There's a CNA screaming angrily at a patient, "Go back to your room. Go back to your room." Absolutely inappropriate. People are not prisoners. They're not to be spoken to in that tone of voice. They're not to be ordered around. It's outrageous. This is the kind of crap that they pulled on me at the beginning of my internship in this prison. So the woman that we just saw with her back to the camera in a patient's room back by bed C, the bed against the far wall back by the window or the sliding glass door. That's the one that gave me a hard time about getting sandwiches on video a couple times recently. She's also the same person that once when I was getting my own tray out of the meal delivery cart, which has 20 patient meal trays in it. This was when the food was still decent. And I found out later it was because the kitchen had been closed by the public health department for a year, and we were getting food from a restaurant. This facility was forced to have a restaurant deliver patient meals for a year, and it paid, I think it was a $72,000 fine because the kitchen conditions were so hideously disgusting, and you can read the full details in the Medicare report, as well as there were newspaper articles online about it. Just hideous. The least of the problems was stench that made patient rooms nearby. Patients told reporters they didn't want to be in their room. They told investigators they didn't want to be in their room because of the stench coming from the kitchen. The investigators found flies, and I won't go any further. It was just horrifying conditions. As you can imagine, that would cause the public health department to close a facility kitchen for a year and fine them $72,000. Anyway, it takes the CNAs, the certified nursing assistants, forever to deliver 20 meal trays to patients because they're short-staffed to begin with. There are at least four meal delivery carts. Actually, if there's 120 patients, that's 6 of those meal delivery carts. 120 trays to deliver, and they might have, 6 CNAs delivering meals. And the back hallway gets done last, the hallway that I'm in. And so by the time they get to us, the CNAs are just lagging. They're going off and taking a break and disappearing and not delivering the meals at all. Meanwhile, the meals have been prepared and sitting in the hallway for ages, getting cold or warm, depending on whether it's a hot meal or a cold offering that they're serving, like a sandwich or something. And meanwhile, the patients in the front hallway get their meals delivered first, and by the time they get to us, it's an hour later. If you look at the meal delivery times that are posted in the dining room, you'll see there's a range that says something like, I'm going to say 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. for lunch. I'm not sure if that's the exact time that's listed, but the reason it's that range isn't because you can get your lunch anytime you want during those hours, because you can't. That's just, it takes them an hour and a half to deliver the meals that were all prepared at the same time and dished up at the same time, and the people that get theirs first are obviously getting fresher and hotter or colder meals, again, depending on whether it's like a sandwich that's, is supposed to be refrigerated maybe, versus a hot meal that you want to be hotter rather than lukewarm or cold. So anyway, I used to go to get my meal because I'd be hungry, and I couldn't find a CNA to get my tray for me, or if I tried to get a CNA, they'd yell at me, go back to your room and wait. Everything was always wait. The first word that always got barked angrily at patients anytime that you, no matter how politely you asked, you'd get barked at furiously by irate, abusive people. Wait, you have to wait. And so I would go, and I'm extremely careful about infection control because I don't want to get sick and I don't want to make other people sick. And so I'm always sanitizing my hands. I'm always using paper towels to touch anything, even though I'm sanitizing my hands. And so I'd use a clean paper towel to open the cart handle door, or to the door, to open the door by the handle. And then I wouldn't be like leaning all over the food. I would just be looking for my tray, which I could pretty much recognize by what was on it. So it's not like I'm leaning into the cart or anything. Plus, I'd be wearing a mask. But I got physically abused numerous times when I went to get my own tray. And it's important to note that the few favorites of the staff, there are some patients that, because they came from the same part of the world, speak the same language, have, maybe they're even relatives, who knows. But some patients are allowed to do anything that they want. They can walk into the nurse's station, get things out of the refrigerator, they can get their meal tray out of the delivery cart, and they can put it back, and nobody yells at them, nobody stops them, nobody abuses them for doing it, nobody says a word about it. But when I did it, I got beat up, I got punched, I got shoved, I got knocked over, Montgomery slammed a door on my arm and trapped my arm in it painfully, and then started dragging me along with the cart. He started pushing the cart with his entire weight of his body, leaned on the door with my arm trapped in it, and I'm screaming in pain, screaming for help, and staff are just completely ignoring that this is happening, not even looking. One of the nurses walks by behind us acts like she doesn't even notice this is happening while I'm screaming at the top of my lungs and trying to scream at her, help me, call 911, and she just ignores it like I don't exist and this isn't happening. And anyway, so I'm very experienced with what just happened, and that CNA that just had her back to the camera that is on video, she abused me by putting dirty diapers and bags spread across the floor, and then ridiculing me, and then refusing to get sandwiches for me a couple of different times on video, and being surly and rude to me verbally. She's probably the person that was yelling at that lady to go back to your room. It sounded like a person with her accent. It sounded like it could have been her voice, and we saw her right there by the meal delivery cart. The other CNA that was gently and kindly moving the lady back to her room, obviously wasn't the person that was shouting at her to go back to her room. The lady that was helping her helping guide her back to her room, kindly and nicely and politely. She does not have an accent. I think she's a Muslim lady. She wears a headscarf, and I've spoken with her. She is American. She doesn't have any kind of an accent. She sounds like she's probably from the peninsula. I mean, she's got what we consider no accent, but of course to people that have a different accent, we probably have a peninsula accent. But anyway, I grabbed my camera as fast as I could because of that abusive CNA shouting at that woman, and I was concerned that the next thing was going to be abuse, physical abuse, since that's what I've experienced numerous times from numerous staff. And that CNA, who I think people call Gina, she one time, while I was getting my meal tray, came up and dug her fingernails into my arm and drew blood. And this was during COVID. And I was extremely concerned because who knows what was on her fingernails, what kind of germs from her handling other patients and changing diapers and washing patients and so forth. I was extremely upset about her inflicting pain and abusing me and drawing blood and subjecting me to all of that. I was just in shock about that, and I was just shaking. I was so upset about that. So that woman is extremely abusive, and so I just grabbed my camera now because I was very concerned that she was about to commit abuse to whomever, whatever patient she was shouting at, go back to your room, because I know that she'll escalate to violence. She's done it to me. She's shoved me, she's punched me, she's dug her fingernails into me and drawn blood, and she's insulted me, and she is one of the many people in this facility that should not be licensed, should not have a certificate, should not be working where there are vulnerable people that can't defend themselves. And nobody should have to nobody should have to defend themselves against her and her abuse and her horrible abusive words and attitude and physical abuse. It's just absolutely outrageous. She's a criminal, and she should not be licensed, and she should not be working in a facility, anywhere. Nobody should be subjected to her abuse.